before anything else is said, guys, both people for this show are half asleep, half awake. So it's not that the episode was boring. We're just tired and or sick. Run that intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to all of the stuff I do for my Monday weekly review stuff, but mostly for Marvelous Mondays. Marvelous Mondays, where we are still being technically insensitive as hell, covering a very politically charged and racially charged show that Kevin Feige could never fucking do. That's right, we're looking at Marvel's Cloak and Dagger yet again, this time with even more of a spiciness. Spicy. Today's episode, well, we're doing a few different recordings for stuff today, but today's episode is Stained Glass. Stained Glass is the name of the episode for a lot of different reasons symbolically, but mostly it's to act as a reflection piece on how both Cloak and Dagger, respectively, at this point, don't really have a clear view of the other. They just see them as passing by strangers. But now comes the point where their connection is so undeniable that they have to intertwine with one another by taking a glimpse into what the other has in their heart and soul. To emphasize this, we will start with, of course, Tandy, who is like the main focal person that we start off the show with before we get to Tyrone. Mm. You do however you want, pass the baton however you want. We're gonna play it however you feel comfortable playing. Uh, what, what was this? We did the episode not that long ago. I think.
But it is what it is. My girl's stressed. Um, to then where she shows up at her mother's house, tries to get herself cleaned up, which she probably honestly, if she wanted to stay away from her mother, was probably better off to go to the hospital. But if that was the first
Shan,
place,
you might want to
well,
start. You might want to start over because apparently you didn't pick up your voice beforehand.
so start from the beginning.
All the way up to where we're getting to Tandy going home to do the stuff.
Oh, okay. So you heard me, or they heard me about the whole leaving the scene, right?
Uh, we they got the reaction of me trying to remember what's his name. I think Liam was his name.
Was it Liam?
Maybe it was Liam.
I don't know. Well, anyway, she leaves the scene after, or Tyrone shows up, makes it look like she almost gets shot at. My girl probably has a concussion. She takes off. Again, probably should not have taken off when she has a concussion, but my girl's stressed. She then goes to her mom's house, which, if she's trying to potentially avoid, her mom, probably the church was probably the better place to go, but I get it. Her mom finds her at home. She discovers that somewhere she's hurt, she's bleeding, she's in danger. Tries to get answers out of her. She's not giving anything. When Detective O'Reilly shows up asking for her daughter, her mother surprisingly saying, like, I haven't seen her in like a few weeks, maybe even a couple months by now. She's probably on the run somewhere. I don't know where she is. First of all, I'm kind of shocked that she didn't actually reveal like where she was. Kind of surprised by that. Well, when she went to go back to Tandy to go figure out what the heck's going on, Tandy ran off, got onto a train or bus.
One of those
And
transports.
yeah, something that runs. Pretty sure it was a bus. And as she keeps hearing like high pitched sounds, from the concussion. And she kind of like dozes off for only a couple seconds to our eyes. Then she wakes up on like this dark vehicle going toward the light, No, she's not dying, people. You can hear like a ball, dribbling, and it's young Tyrone playing basketball. And then slightly ahead goes on to back in time to back with the gun going at Tandy with Tyrone.
So Tyrone at this point in time is just a little bit confused. Like he didn't know he teleported. He doesn't even understand how his powers work. We've been over this I don't know how many times. Like these kids don't know how their powers work. That's the main crux of the show. So at this point where he's trying to explain to Tandy, you shouldn't be moving. You probably got a concussion or something. It still goes into she flees the scene. He's left with the smoking gun, literally, and has to find his way home. How he got home, I don't know. It's New Orleans. You can find anything anywhere in New Orleans. You can find a crack dealer in like 4 different houses in New Orleans. Don't ask me how I know this. So we end up following Tyrone as he goes back to the school because he wants to talk to one of the fathers because it's technically a private school for Catholics, I think. I don't know. I haven't practiced religion in years. Where he's lamenting a lot of different stuff to his brother Billy because after his death, which he still blames himself for because he was like in elementary school when he saw his brother get gunned down by a white police officer. We then have to follow the same kind of regrets and remorse that he's struggling with because survivor's guilt is a monster of a feeling. You never really get rid of it. It never leaves you. And all you're thinking to yourself is, I just truly want to suffer so that things can make sense again. Witnessing this comes his primary crush for the moment of Evita. I finally got her name right for an episode, so nobody that's a fan of the show could bust my chops about this. Evita invites Tyrone to go onto a walk that's going to be a big focus for the show from here on out. A walk along tour of New Orleans involving voodoo, or voodoo itself. Voodoo is very important because Cloak and Dagger, if it's going to be set in this location, is extra tied to the Loas of voodoo. It's not as prevalent to many other shows and products within the Marvel canon, but Cloak and Dagger's connections to the Loa spirits is going to be something we're going to be exploring a lot more in the runtime of the show. But we're going to get to that later. So, upon going on this walking tour with Evita to then also meet Evita's grandmother, who does an impromptu tarot reading using solitaire and or just regular playing cards, which technically can work at the same way. You just need the same energies to bond with the spirits. Whether or not you believe in that is a whole nother story altogether. But her whole thing is, Tyrone, your soul is stanky. You need to take a bath. So he gets some stuff from Whole Foods that she says he needs to buy to take a bath because his soul is stanky. So after he takes a soul bath for his stanky soul, he transports himself to have an outer body experience at the same time that Tandy's having an outer body experience, except unlike where she's walking to the light of the light force, you're gonna hear me say light and dark force a lot in this fucking review series, so get used to that. He's going into the dark force to where he's looking at a young Tandy who is standing atop of the roof for Roxxon Corporation, where we then go back into tandem for... I'm holding the baton out to you there, Shay.
Like Tandy. I was waiting for you to say your name. That's like, that's just our suspense. Like, yeah. So when this goes back to Tandy's POV, it's kind of like we go back and forth because you're seeing stuff from her point of view, you're seeing things from his point of view. It's an interesting but slightly confusing time. So hopefully I can get this right. So back to Tandy. As I mentioned, she sees like a young Tyrone, playing basketball. I then discovered, and was kind of relieved, that the time that Tandy is seeing young Tyrone was when Billy showed up. They were playing basketball. And it was kind of like a refresher from episode 1 where Tyrone took the radio from the car. You don't see him retaking the radio from the car, but his buddies, Billy's buddies are there and be like, hey, like, we found the car with our radio. You gonna go with us and get it? And he's like, nah, bro. I'm here to stay with my brother. And they're like, sucks to be you, bro. And they left. Although he's also handed a check. Don't really understand about that situation quite yet, but he was handed, like, a check of some sort. Which then it goes further in where Tandy sees Tyrone more grown up, and he's kind of giving me off, I was gonna say Hamilton vibes. What's that decade?
It was during the Revolutionary era.
Revolution War. And playing Alexander Hamilton, the cosplay. And basically, you see him like it's almost. I don't know if it's like it was supposed to be like Tyrone's thoughts of like him going up to the cop and like killing him, would then go back and another situation would happen, which we will not say on YouTube for triggering reasons. That happens, and then she ends.
I can help you with that, Shan, if it helps you with the whole thing. Tandy sees the absolute hope and the absolute dream scenarios that Tyrone desperately clings on to gain sanity every day. Everything about if Billy chose to just stay with him to play basketball is a change of fate for things where if he didn't do this, his brother would still be alive. If he found the cop to kill them, the hope would be there, but the realism is crushing because he's a black kid in America. You can't just get justice for racial murder. You end up becoming the villain no matter what you do. So that's the whole thing.
Okay. So, on the third scenario in that case, she basically tells Tyrone that he needs to do something different, and she ends up putting one of her daggers on the table for him to grab. And then it goes back into Tyrone's point of view.
So, from Tyrone's point of view in the Dark Force, we are looking at him gazing upon the very fears and loathing that is dwelling within Tandy. Like, we all knew as viewers what was going down, because it's hard to really ignore the fact that Tandy was a young child where she saw her dad get killed upon the pressures of the water, and the fact that they couldn't recover the body in time to save him during a rainy night after Roxxon had a whole facility blow the fuck up on an offshore rig. So, yeah, she's going to be super traumatized to think that the only answer that she can do is run away. Where the Dark Force showcases the very heavy emotions that she has of her dad is pinned down and there's no way to save him. So, what can she do? She runs away. Her mom wants to fight to get justice for a group of individuals that do not care about a now single mother that's a widow and their child. So what can she do? She runs away. Tyrone instead is just saying that there is a better way to fight back to make sure that you are heard, because as a woman in America, it is very much a huge fight no matter what your credence is. Granted, yes, it's going to be harder depending on your skin color, what kind of fight you have as a woman, but we're going to ignore that part right now because the rest of the world in America tends to forget that part as the whole thing of an argument's sake. No, I'm not still bitter. So, from this whole back and forth, it's pretty prevalent that both of their powers are activating in a huge spike, because the further that they're trying to get away from each other, the more that their shared abilities are trying to bring them back together. Where it's jumping from these different visuals from not just what Tandy was seeing, but for Tyrone to see that Tandy's also in this abandoned church with the stained glass panels. Whoa, that's like the title of the episode, Shan.
Oh my god.
But we then go back to Tandy's POV for things because
I'm not gonna lie. Apparently, I didn't write down what happens next for her POV.
oh,
I remember his, but I don't remember hers.
wasn't it about her with the bus and then the detective?
Or wasn't there something else before that though?
I believe
It's
so.
because they both end up basically keep going back and forth until they both are like almost touching hands in the church using their powers.
Yeah,
Then they wake up.
that was the crux of it before they both came out of their vision walk, if you will.
Oh, I remember how we got to that point. Hold on. So back to Tandy. She's in like the church, but she sees like a whole bunch of like envelopes in this building with young Tyrone stuck in them, trapped in there with them, basically like in a fetal position, crying. And she's trying to like comfort him, but then she walks over to like the church, like the stained glass, like windows, where you see Tyrone's POV.
Where he's just approaching Tandy in the abandoned church on his own end to see kind of just her struggling in the same visuals that we've seen since the first two episodes, about her feeling isolated, alone, and like she's fighting all of these things with the weight of the world just resting on her shoulders as if there's nothing else she can do, before he reaches out for Tandy on her side of stuff to where when their hands touch, they both wake up. Where now we have the
Yeah.
conclusion for Tandy's POV.
Yes. So Tandy wakes up on the bus. Everybody that was on the bus was already there. They're still there. She ends up eventually getting off the bus to where she makes a phone call to Detective O'Reilly because she wanted to talk to Tandy because she believes she's a victim of everything that happened in the previous episodes, and she just wants to like talk to her and get some stuff figured out. To where she talks to her um, about what's going on, just slightly. You don't really hear the conversation, but you know it happens. And then she ends up leaving to go back to the church.
Where
Where?
where Tyrone and Evita are walking, and as they're walking, it seems like a very cutesy moment between the two that ends up being where Evita apparently used a voodoo wish for her to end up with Ty in this situation. It's kind of sweet before he recognizes that that's the church that a crazy white girl is at, and is making it his mission to kind of go there to meet her, because by the time Tandy's returning to the church, he wants to talk to her because they both know that there's a lot that needs to be talked about. And The episode kind of ends where, although Detective O'Reilly is trying to get a case together because what happened to the boy doesn't seem like an assault case against Tandy, but more like he was the assaulter and she was the victim. It's tied more to the cop that shot Tyrone's brother. But we also now have this other player where Evita's grandmother has started making statues that she's made in a 3D printer. One of them is Tyrone's, but how long before they make the second one of Tandy? Meaning that somehow, in some fashion, the Loa are taking notice of these two aspiring heroes. I just made that sound super dramatic for no fucking reason. But yeah, that's episode 3, guys. It's very dramatic, it's very character driven. There's so much that needs to be talked about and dissected from this. And I don't know what else to really get into. It's just brilliantly handled and done.
It is, and actually, I was gonna say in the beginning, I know we're only 3 episodes in. Out of the 3 that we've watched, I think this one was my favorite one so far.
Like, this is probably why. This is probably why whenever I sit down and talk to people about what I'm looking for in products and shows, even from a industry staple like Marvel, it's things like this where the build up pays off so well. You get the slow builds from episodes prior to make sure that it delivers like a beautiful snack, a beautiful dinner dish or whatever have you, and you have it in spades with Cloak and Dagger, for example, because it does have jokes in it because these are teenage characters, but it's not written to be like there's quips and jokes that are made to make you think that it's good because it's quippy and jokey. It's written to be that you care about the characters and want to see them develop and be better because they're doing more for themselves. And from it, where the payoff right now is stained glass, we're not even at like the crux or even the best episode of the season just yet. This is just the blooming point. That's how you know you have a good show, where the payoff for the openings of everything is solid and it's congruent for what you need to do. Does this mean that I'm gonna be a lot kinder to other stuff that has been produced by Kevin Feige? No. God, no. No, that man has terrible execution on what he approves as an executive producer. Get the fuck out of my face with that. No. No, that's why I'm afraid of the new Daredevil series. Do not get me fucking started, Kevin. But I digress. We've talked about this episode enough, but I think this also goes to show there's a new power set that I don't think Shan even really recognized until this episode. That Tandy and Tyrone can't be separated from one another. It is a detriment for one or the other because of their connection and their bond.
Yeah.
It's like a defensive trigger for the light and dark force because you can't have light without darkness, can't have darkness without light.
That's true.
But we're just gonna stop here and get ready for the next episode where it is called call slash respond.
Response.
Response. Whatever English. I don't really pay your taxes English. Get the fuck out of my face. Yeah, so words. We gonna see y'all next week for that episode. And maybe, just maybe, we won't have just issues for the first couple of minutes that we're doing an episode. Or maybe we will.
Who's to say?
Bleh.